How do you approach working not only with George Lucas and his team, but just internally to get this project off the ground?
At Imagineering, as we get together and a project comes and gets greenlit, there's so many people that come together and we all work so well together. It really is starting with story, building the story, and as the story gets developed, then you start bringing in the technology, and then you start working with those people, and so it sort of builds in the process of developing it until you're actually building it and bringing it into the field. So it's a very long process, but every step there's a check and balance along the way.
Certainly everything at Disney starts with a story. Was there a time in the development of this new Star Tours that the story was going to go in a totally different direction than Star Tours, or was it always going to be Star Tours?
It's very interesting, and when you go back to the original storyboards that were created in 2005, we're very close to the original intent. There was a couple little changes, but overall we were, there was a lot of work. I mean, working with ILM and George Lucas and Tom Fitzgerald, what an incredible team, and they were really strong on their intent, and it really stayed pretty true to that original intent.
And going through the first time, I was really impressed about how much it still feels like Star Tours. I'm thinking this is a whole new ride, it's going to be totally different, and it is totally different, but yet it feels the same way. How did you find that balance, keeping it the same but making it new?
That was one of our really strong goals. Is we wanted it to be Star Tours, but we wanted to feel very familiar but different. And we changed time periods, and so we wanted to do, if this was an earlier time period, what would this be? What we wanted to also do is really immediately immerse you into the Star Wars universe. And so we want you to be on the spaceport. Everything you feel, everything you see, everything you touch, it feels like you're in a spaceport. I'm going on, I'm going to go get on a star speeder. Just like when you go to the airport, I'm going on vacation, and so we wanted to really sort of build that whole anticipation of taking the space flight and really enjoying it. So we really had our goal was really to make that whole experience as soon as you enter into the spaceport to be a Star Wars experience.
We've definitely themed it out very well as far as being a spaceport, to the point of, now there's the luggage droid, which is absolutely hilarious. Last night I spent 15 minutes standing there and watched the entire, everything that he was doing. When, during the process, was it a thought to include references to so many other Disney and Pixar and, Star Wars universe items in there?
Oh, very early on. At Imagineering, we're always finding ways to sort of keep that incredible whole storytelling sort of held. And it's like, what do you put in luggage? So it's like, oh.
Right. And then what does the Disney universe put in luggage?
Absolutely. And one of the things that from a storytelling, everything you see in Star Tours is about Star Wars universe. So all of the references and is about making sure that you're really immersed in that experience.
There seems to be a real good sense of humor throughout the whole experience too. Star Wars, the movies, sure, they've got jokes here and there, but they're not necessarily comedies, or I feel like Star Tours is much more of a comedy.
And I think that was very strongly driven with George Lucas and Tom Fitzgerald. Is we're at a Disney experience, and so and it's family oriented, so we want it to be fun and exciting and memorable. And so I know George had a lot to do with that, and Tom Fitzgerald had a lot to do with it. So.
One more question. At Destination D over the weekend, I think it was Jason Sorrell joked that George Lucas didn't really care about the fact that the Hoth scene didn't necessarily fit the timeline exactly. Were there any considerations as far as, the fans are really going to be up in arms about timeline issues?
When the father of Star Wars says, it's okay to give our fans what they want, I mean, then I think it's okay.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.